what went wrong with the Celtics' pursuit of Anthony Davis. One, it was public. Danny Ainge publicly stated that he was going to go after Anthony Davis, right? Mistake. Another thing was to talk about the assets that they had to be best in line to acquire Anthony Davis, right? So what you're doing is you're instantly equating real humans playing a sport for your team and your franchise as assets.
See,
right?
that's something I've evaluated within the last year, because that's part of this dialogue of sports. And, I'm not the only one that's guilty of it. I feel like everybody who's written about sports has described an athlete as an asset.
Yeah, and here's what's crazier, right? My finger. When you think about that and think about what was going on that whole season, right? Everybody was playing that year knowing that it was likely that they'd be out the door for Anthony Davis if they could get him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about the whole season. We're talking about Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum. No, you can't get rid of him. You can't touch Jayson. You can't touch Jaylen. Al's the biggest piece. Al can go at any time. If we're gonna get him, he's definitely gonna be the piece. And they're just talking about everybody else. Would you send Marcus? You can't send Marcus. Marcus is the heart and soul of the team. All season long, they're talking about who you would send or who you would trade or what picks you would send along with them. Don't send that pick. All season long. So Jayson and Jaylen have to deal with this for a full year, as does Al. And then the other piece is that when he finally says, I'm not going to Boston, I don't like the way y'all treated IT. Boston, people in Boston, myself, were just like, IT was never going to get that Brinks money. They were never going to give that money to a 5'9" guard to play in a style that isn't Boston Celtics basketball, unfortunately. But that doesn't change that the league loved IT. And the only reason that people really messed with the Celtics during that short stretch of time is because they were rooting for him. But again, as we know in Boston, that's not how we play Celtics basketball. When the Celtics were IT and he was the king in the fourth, they were pretty much playing the same style of basketball that the Philadelphia 76ers played in 2001, right? That's not how the Celtics play. The Celtics have a team where multiple people are dangerous. Ideally, all 5 players on the court are dangerous. That's how the Celtics want to play ball. And I knew that the Celtics were going to upgrade at every point, at every roster space in that offseason. And they ended up doing it. They got rid of their 5'9" point guard. They got rid of their 6'2" shooting guard, who was also one of the best, perimeter defenders in the league, in Avery Bradley. They upgraded the bench. They upgraded their starters. The only person who was probably still left around was Al and the guy who they drafted, who was Jaylen Brown, right? Mm-hmm. And they upgraded everywhere. And that team did what? Went right back to the Eastern Conference Finals. And almost, went to the goddamn finals. But the thing is that when you have players on your team and they're seriously looked at as property, when Terry was tearing things up and he was scary Terry, right? He knew that there was no way he was going to get the money that he was deserved, or he was going to be shipped out of town for somebody else. So do you remember what Terry did in order to get shipped out of Boston and be put in an advantage situation in Charlotte? I do. That man went on ESPN.
The day after the season, pretty much, yep.
And when he went on ESPN, I was like, I respect it. Now, here's the thing. Were people mad at Terry when he got out of Boston? No, because they knew what he was up against. And they knew what he did, and they respected it. And they knew that Puma was going to throw the money at him, and they knew that Scary Terry was going to be Scary Terry somewhere else. And he is. And Charlotte, right? But look at how Kyrie leaves. Kyrie leaves under a set of circumstances that just boggles the mind. But also, I have to tell you, from talking to people who were around the franchise during that time, it was just ugly all the way around, right? Al Horford likely left the Celtics because he did not want to come back to that team if Kyrie was going to come back. But the thought was maybe Kyrie could convince somebody to come back with him. Kyrie had already planned on what he was going to do with KD, And there's the video of Kyrie talking to KD at like the All-Star break, and he's talking about what they could do together, and you could read his lips, and you're like, oh, maybe he's trolling. Maybe he's trolling to try to make people think he's going to do X, Y, and Z. And I was even in denial. You could go and check Twitter. I was like, come on, Kyrie's too smart to do that where he knows there are cameras saying these things that you can really read on his lips. The both of us can go there and do X, Y, and Z, right? But he did. And I really think that that was part of the thing, because after that happened, everything went downhill. The Milwaukee series, they swept the first series. The Milwaukee series was a mess. A mess. And then, like, look at his reactions. He pretty much quit on the team after game one when they won. When you asked him questions, he just wasn't responding like he typically did. He had checked out already, right? He was gone. And the thing is that if you hate the Celtics and hate Boston, yay. One of your favorite players is no longer wearing green. You would have hated for Kyrie to sign back with the Celtics. You would hate for LeBron to sign with the Celtics. You always want LeBron to go against the Celtics and not the Celtics out. You know? So this is what we're dealing with. But the thing is that the Celtics and Boston City are in a unique situation where it's pretty much like, what can you do? You know? I'm a black Bostonian, and me saying anything positive about my home, the city I've lived in for 45 years, going on 46 this August, I love this city. I bleed green. Whatever color the Celtics, Red Sox, Bruins are. I watch Bruins playoffs games. All right, like I am a Bostonian. Even though, like, when you think of Boston, you automatically don't think my face. It doesn't matter. I exist, right? But the thing is that Boston and the Celtics are in a unique situation where you just pretty much just got to take it. You know, you just pretty much got to take it because nobody wants to hear it. They just don't.
Hi guys, Cedric Maxwell here. I want to take a minute to tell you about Marigold Medical. I'm used to keeping my body in great shape, but with arthritis, even the most simple everyday tasks became unbearable. As soon as I called Marigold Medical, I knew I was in good hands. No drugs, no surgery, just an experienced team of caring professionals that wanted to get me back to doing the things I love. Make the call to Marigold Medical and get back to pain-free life.